You're tuning in to two former NFL scouts, Vital and Kelly, covering the NFL and college football like nobody else. Vital, a four-time Super Bowl winner, who worked for 6 NFL teams and held executive roles with 3 of them, the Patriots, Falcons, and Cowboys. And Kelly, a former pro scout with the New York Jets and current scouting director at FirstRoundMock.com. You've listened to the rest. Now it's time to hear from these two.
Hello, Lionel. How are you doing tonight?
Danimal. What's up? What's up, Danimal?
Hey, that's me. That's my name. Don't wear it out.
I love it. I love it.
Good stuff. Good stuff, right?
Yes, to say the least.
Absolutely. Well, we're talking free agency. I mean, the Super Bowl's over, right? The Super Bowl's over, and the season's over. And I heard people complaining online last Sunday that it was their first Sunday without NFL football, and they didn't know what they're going to do with themselves. But that catapults us right into the beginning of free agency. And we're going to get right into this, starting by talking about the New York Football Giants edge rusher, Kayvon Thibodeaux. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the name Kayvon Thibodeaux?
You know, I hear a lot of flash. I see a lot of flash. I don't quite see the results. I see a guy that, they took high and early in the draft, but they haven't gotten what they've paid for yet. That's what I see when I think of Thibodeaux.
Yeah, he was the 5th overall pick, to your point, in the 2022 NFL draft out of Oregon. And the debate, Lionel, is raging online whether or not the Giants should pick up his 5th-year option. The deadline, of course, is May 1st. If the Giants do pick it up, Thibodeaux is guaranteed $16.1 million in the 2026 season. Now, as we get into this discussion, Lionel, I want to share something I saw in GiantsWire.USA Today.com. This is what Mark Ross had to say, former Giants executive and now NFL Network studio analyst, and I quote, he says that Thibodeaux hasn't quite had the production Big Blue envisioned, but injuries, he missed games as a rookie and in 2024 have certainly played a part in that. His best season undoubtedly occurred in 2023 when he logged 11.5 sacks, 4 passes defensed, and 3 forced fumbles. He's certainly done enough for New York to exercise the 5th-year option. I'd imagine the organization wants to keep the dominant defensive line trio of Thibodeaux, Brian Burns, and Dexter Lawrence intact, unquote. And the article goes on to say, Lionel, that Thibodeaux was GM Joe Sheen's first draft pick as a Giants general manager. He has some credibility and accountability here to consider, the article said. What does it say about his ability to judge talent if he doesn't pick up the options on both of his top 10 picks from 2022? When you hear the words of Mark Ross, Lionel, and you hear what the thoughts are in that USA Today Giants Wire article talking about, what the reputation of the GM being on the line, whether he's, picks up the option or not. When you hear me speak those words, what goes through your mind?
I don't see clarity. I hear a lot of they may pick his deal up the 5th year. They may exercise that final year on his deal. I don't think the Giants are satisfied with Thibodeaux. I don't think they're certain about Thibodeaux. If they were, they'd be talking to Thibodeaux about a new contract. That's the answer to that test. Whenever they make you go into your last year without renewing it, they don't like what's happening. They're not satisfied. Most of the time, teams are pulling you in a room and saying, hey, let's do this. We love you. We want to get this done. We want to make you happy. We want you to be a Giant. We want you to be part of what we're doing. They're not knocking on his door, man. He's waiting for a knock. So they're not happy. They're telling him how they feel.
Is it that they're not happy? I mean, I understand, I hear what you're saying, or is it just the fact that Giants don't really want to pay people? I mean, they let Saquon Barkley walk. They cut Daniel Jones. I mean, is it just that, I mean, do they really want to pay these huge contracts, or I mean, what is?
I don't think it's about money. I think they, with Daniel Jones, every year they played the same song. It didn't work out. They think they've, gotten rid of a mess, because it really hadn't matured for him. Saquon Barkley, they looked at Saquon and said, well, he's a running back. We shouldn't pay him all this money. Heck, we're not playing well. Why not good here. Why should we pay some running back all this money, which was a big mistake.
Right, we
However,
watched the Super Bowl. Yep.
yeah, but they screwed up on Saquon. Thibodeaux, they're just saying for what the market is asking for a defensive end, we don't think he's worth it. I mean, they see him every day in practice.
Right.
See, that's the thing. Teams, when I give teams the benefit of the doubt, in most cases, they see these guys every day in practice.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah.
So
Well,
when they hesitate,
yeah.
So when they hesitate, they're just saying, hey, man, we know the deal. Now, in Barkley's case, they just said he's a running back.
Yeah, that backfired.
That backfired.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, no, I hear everything you're saying, and a very, very valid points. I mean, Thibodeaux is someone, I mean, just to kind of go back in time here, I was extremely high on coming out of Oregon. Pre-draft, I comped him to Khalil Mack, who's played 11 seasons, logging 107.5 sacks. Of course, Mack has played a lot more years than Thibodeaux at this point. Thibodeaux has logged 21 sacks in his first 3 seasons, missing a total of 8 games, like I mentioned, because of injury. But if we look at a 17 game average per se, Thibodeaux is still averaging 8.3 sacks per season. Now, Mack, who has made $169 million in his career, as far as apples to apples are concerned, we are talking about New York, he averages 10.9 sacks per season. Khalil Mack does. So 10.9 versus 8.3 is what the number is. I mean, is it because are the injuries scaring the Giants? Is that what's happening here? Are they just not seeing the longevity of his career? I mean, what do you see in general as a guy who's been a director of player personnel and a director in college scouting and everything? I mean, what do you when you see a guy getting hurt as much as Thibodeaux does? Is the real fear and the real concern that this guy doesn't have longevity, he's not going to last? Is that the real concern or not?
I keep seeing a 1-year wonder. He had one big year, Dan. He had one big year. He had 11 sacks.
Right.
Every other year, he's had 8 sacks. When you pick in the top 10 in the draft, they're not picking you for 7, 8 sacks. They want you to get double-digit sacks when they take you in the top 10. And again, like I said, they see him in practice. They see probably the lack of physicality, the size limitations. He's a lower body, thin guy. And, he's going against the bigger guys in practice, and they're saying, okay, no, I don't know if we can pay him what the market's bearing, what is asking for.
Well, it's interesting because according to PFF, Pro Football Focus, again, I went back and I looked at how many pressures he's produced in the last 3 years. He's produced 121 pressures these past 3 seasons, 38, 43, and 40 pressures respectively. So in terms of pocket disruption, does that add to his value? Do you see it being? I mean, what do you think of when you hear of 121 pressures in 3 years?
I hear a guy who's almost getting home, but he doesn't get home.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want you to get home. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sounds to me, Thibodeaux sounds like a number 2 pass rusher. And he probably wants number 1 money. Okay? There's a number 1 pass rusher who's going to get you 12, 14 sacks. Like the big boys. And then there's a number 2 pass rusher who's going to get you 6, 7, 8 sacks every year. But these 6, 7, and 8 sack guys want number 1 money. And I think that's where the problem comes.
Interesting. Yeah, to your point, you've mentioned a couple things in this show that leads me to point this out. In 2024, the average annual salary of pass rushers, according to research here, somewhere between about 15 and 34 million per year. And so when we look at Thibodeaux as far as a 50-year option, do the Giants just say, okay, listen, because I mean Thibodeau's come out and said that one way or another he doesn't really care. He's got something to prove to himself. But do the Giants look at this situation and say, well, you know what, 16.1 per year is, that's really on the lower end of this spectrum. Should we give it to him for 1 year and see what he does and go from there? Of course, by that point, if he has a breakout year again this year, they'll probably go to a different team anyway because it's unlikely the Giants would pay him. But do they? I mean, because it is a lower number on that spectrum at 16.1. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they are wanting to see what he's going to produce this year. They're willing to maybe pay 15 to 18 to 20, but they're not going to pay 25, 28 million dollars to Thibodeaux. And I really think that they don't think he's worth it. I mean, they're going to give him the 15, 16, but they really don't see the value. If they did, Danny, they would have made the offer already, especially that position. You always make offers to corners, you make them to the defensive ends, you make them to your tackles. You just make the offers, man. Quarterbacks.
Right, right. In general, how long does it take in your past? How long does it take for these pass rushers? I mean, to really become who they really, become really good? I mean, do they all do it right out of the gates? Does it take some of them some time? Like, what's your experience with looking at these guys?
Guys that flash will always flash. Okay? They'll give you 10 sacks, they'll give you 12 sacks. They'll always flash. Then they'll go back to being who they are. Okay? So what the Giants sounds like they're saying, hey, we think we have a flash guy. We could find a guy and get 7, 8 sacks out of that guy. We don't want to overpay some guy, pay him number one money, and he's a number two guy.
Do you think that? Do you think Kayvon Thibodeaux can still become an elite pass rusher at this point of his career, or you think that boat has sailed?
He's still a fairly young player, but I think Kayvon is my gut tells me he's a number two rusher. I don't see him as being elite. Now, you could be a number two rusher and then still impact football. You could impact a team and you could impact games. But it's going to be more flashes. Well, the guys that are the big time guys, as we know those guys, there's about a handful of those in the league. They impact every game and every series. Okay?
No question.
I don't know. I don't see Thibodeaux in that light.
Are pressures as valuable to you as sacks in your mind, or not?
Pressures are extremely valuable because you're forcing pressure. You're pressuring the quarterback. You're pressuring the tackle. You're forcing people to throw the ball before they want to. Yeah, pressures are valuable. They really are. Now, you've got to really watch closely what pressures are, because a lot of these pressures are inflated. So you got to watch pressures, man. You got to really look at them closely.
What do you mean by inflated?
Well, is it really a pressure? Okay, a lot of these people that account these pressures, I would have my own people. The quarterback gets the ball off comfortably, and then you suddenly emerge. Is that a pressure? No, it's not.
No.
But a lot of that stuff is charted as a pressure.
Yeah. Well, PFF, Pro Football Focus, their whole focus is, their whole grading formula and processes are a little mysterious to me. They always have been kind of like, number one, how are the formulas put together? We don't know that. Number two, who's doing the grading?
Yeah. Dan, I'll say this about Kayvon Thibodeaux. Everybody is desperate for pass rushers. No one will let an elite pass rusher get out of their house. If the Giants are not jumping all over the place to keep him, there's a problem, man. There's a
Yeah,
problem, okay? If the Giants are not flinching, especially after going through what they went through with Barkley, if they're not flinching for
good
this
point.
guy, there's a real problem, man. They're doubling down. They're saying, nope, don't see it. Because real pass rushers, I think they would have had him in the office last year, going into his fourth year. Say, hey, look, in the next year, we want to get this done. We want to make you the guy. If they're not even talking to him, if they're saying, we'll do it after this year, they're saying we're not happy. Because if Kayvon comes in and he has a mega year, 15, 18 sacks, then he can reshuffle the whole market. That's the
Right.
chance they take. But they're betting that he's not going to do that.
Interesting. How would you view him and compare him to other guys that play in the league?
Give me a couple names. You compare. Give me some comparisons.
Okay, well, Aiden Hutchinson with the Lions.
Well, not in the same ballpark. Aiden Hutchinson plays with his hair on fire, and he gets sacks and he gets pressures and he impacts the whole defense.
Yeah, Boza with the 49ers.
Nick Bosa is a wrecking crew. He's a one-man wrecking crew, and he pushes people into people, and he's perpetual motion. He's no Nick Bosa, nowhere in that league.
Trey Hendrickson with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Trey Hendrickson plays with a physicality and a toughness and a grit, and he's always pressuring. He's pushing tackles into quarterback's lap. He's a very good football player.
TJ Watt.
He's no TJ Watt. Next.
Micah Parsons.
He's no Micah Parsons.
Will Anderson Jr.
He's not quite Will Anderson Jr. I've seen Will Anderson Jr. If you single block him, you're in trouble. You got a chip on him.
Will McDonald, with the Jets.
Will McDonald is a good football player, but he's not in a great league.
So are we starting to get into Thibodeaux territory, the mid-range?
Yeah.
Is that where we're with? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, right around there.
Okay. And last question I have for you is for tonight's show. Anyways, was he overdrafted coming out?
He went where he should have went because you only get rated according to who else is in the draft. Okay, the draft is not just your skill set. Sometimes it's what other defensive linemen you are rated with. And if there's three guys and they start going off the board, then you might take a guy a little higher than you want to because other guys are going off the board. But they took him in the top 10, so everybody respects the top 10 is supposed to be a dominant football player.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is he dominant? Is he dominant? No, he flashes it, but he doesn't give it to you. He flashes it. It'll show up periodically. That's not good.
Okay. You bring up really one good last question here. I said that was the last question, but you just said something that sparked something inside me, and I think this is important for everybody to hear. I mean, you've been doing this for your whole life. Why does a player flash? Like, what's going on upstairs? Like what the guys we keep talking about flashing. Let's unpack that for just a brief moment. What does that mean? Like, why do they flash? Why is it not consistent in your experience?
Because a player is not consistently playing up to the water level. Okay? It's a little too much for him to play at that high level. It would take too much out of him. Okay? A fast car, a powerful engine fast car can get up to 140 and operate at 140. Well, a car that's not as fast will get up a little bit. It's going to rev its engine, but it's limited in what it can get. Okay, so the power and the one with the most the most dynamic of the two is going to operate at a dynamic level, and the other is going to flash it. You're going to just see a little bit, just a little flash of it, but that's all that there is to it.
Is it a lack of commitment? Is it a lack of energy? Is it a just not enough love for the game? I mean, is it choice D, all the above? I mean, why is it just why are guys? Why do you think all those choices or any other choices? I mean, if you want to say something else, I mean,
Well, a lot of time it's heart. A lot of time it's just the will to play hard. A lot of time the skill set is just not there. There's a skill set thing too that you have to gauge. And he's not quite doesn't play up to the level because he doesn't have that level of skill.
interesting, good stuff. Well, thank you for watching and listening, everybody, and make sure to tell your friends at the office about us and join us for our next show, Lionel, where we're going to talk about guess what? More football.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Thank you, Lionel. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for the latest episode of two former NFL scouts, Vitale and Kelly. No nonsense, uncensored, hard-hitting football analysis. Weekdays